folks, and great to be with you. Here we are for yet another 3-hour excursion into broadcast excellence, Rush Limbaugh, and we are available here at 800-282-2882, the email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. So wrapped up the interview with Sean Hannity just an hour ago, and then they had to tear down everything in here. So I have had to really compress 4 or 5 hours of show prep into 45 minutes. We'll see how that goes. I wish I could tell you how the interview went, but I don't think it went very well because there's nobody here that claims to have seen it. We couldn't see it, Rush. The monitors couldn't only see the back of your head. That doesn't augur well, folks. Normally the sycophants are out there. It was great. It was the best ever. But now none of them saw it. So I guess we'll just have to watch. And none of them are disagreeing with me even here. So it must not have been. You couldn't hear much. See, it's not looking good in here, folks, for the Hannity Show interview tonight. There's nobody in there that wants to even say a single thing positive about it. We couldn't see it because their crew had their equipment in the way. We couldn't hear it very much. Well, that's the first time. Normally you can hear everything in there. Anyway, seriously, it was fun, and it was it raced by, and it's going to air. It's most of the Hannity Show tonight. He's got his monologue open and a couple things like that, but it's. I wish I could tell you about it. I can tell you one thing. They edited out something I said that was not profane and it was not offensive. Well, depending on who, maybe. And this came up, Sean's doing his usual. You got to do TV. You got to come back to me. If you just once a month, come on, man, just once a month. And I said, look, why should I? They've already bleeped out one thing I said here. You're not supposed to say that. Well, it's too late now. So they'll bleep out that I said that. Probably. As I say, it wasn't risque or anything of the sort. But it covered all the bases. It covered all the subject matter. And we shall see. We'll get your feedback on it tomorrow after you take your time to watch it tonight. So it's live 9 Eastern on the Fox News channel. As I say, I've had to compress things here in what normally I spend 4 or 5 hours doing into 45 minutes. And here are the things that are piling up out there that I hate to do this. Remember all these times in the past months when people would ask me to react to the latest generic ballot poll on the House races or the Senate races, I would always demur and say, they don't mean anything right now. The events that are going to shape the election haven't happened yet. Then the Kavanaugh thing happened, and now there's this massive caravan heading to the country with the aid of Mexico and Guatemala. Nobody is trying to stop this. Nobody is trying to stop it. It's up to 4,000 people now. It's estimated that this is costing somebody $21 million. These people have to be fed, they have to be transported, and they have to use the bathroom. They have to be able to drink water and whatever else they can get their hands. Somebody is making this happen. Somebody thinks that this is going to what? Augur well for Democrats? We're told that George Soros money is behind this. I don't care whose money it is. It's a lot of money to make this happen. There are a lot of kids, by the way, and the magic of the caravan is the children. As it always is, there are children in the caravan, and that, it's kind of like the baby on board signs. I always hated those. I even had one made that said, baby not on board, but we're still as valuable as anybody else is inside this. I actually had one of those made. Didn't those bother you, baby on board? Rush baby on board. Exactly. We had a Rush baby on board little inside the yellow sign. We made it up, and it was available at the Rush Limbaugh store. But this is the same thing. Children, young children. Oh, so we must do what? We must open the gates. We must stand aside. We must allow them passage. So we've got this. We have the Mueller report, as I say. More on that in a moment. The Mueller report is just lurking there. There isn't anything really in it. In fact, we now know, probably have a sure bet, that there's nothing dynamite in it because of an audio soundbite I have coming up. A never-Trumper, anti-Trumpist Phil Mudd, former intelligence official, U.S. government, now a CNN commentator. But who is it that would think, if you're on the left, that think this massive caravan arriving in the United States at our border close to the election, who thinks this is going to help Democrats? How would it help Democrats? It's not just Trump separating them, it's Trump not letting them in. There has to be what it is. These people actually are figuring that a massive they don't understand that this kind of thing is why Donald Trump was elected. Donald Trump was elected to stop this kind of thing, to stop this invasion. And that's what this is. This is an organized, bought and paid for invasion. And it's growing. So obviously the plan is for this group of people, including the children, to arrive here very close to the election and for Trump to sick ICE on them and the Border Patrol on them and to deny them entry or to separate the children from the adults so that the drive-by media can then kick into gear with stories that are already written, that are already taped, interviews with people on the caravan already in the can, where these people will say they're shocked they came to America to save their lives for their children and to improve their lives. The United States won't let them in. This is unlike anything they ever heard about. And then they'll cut to pictures of Trump. Republican turnout. Well, they may be fleeing poverty, but that happens every day. 4,000 of them. This is orchestrated. It's planned. It's bought and paid for. Somehow this is supposed to end up making the United States look bad. I'm not sure if that's the way these people are figuring it going to play out. Then we have the Mueller report that will not be released before the election, but we're being told that it is nearing completion and that it is ready to go. I went through yesterday what the hope here is. The hope here is to revive the Trump colluded with Russia narrative and to make people think that we're just days or weeks away from proof being released. But that we can't do it before the election because of regulations and decency, so we're not going to influence the outcome of elections, but Mueller is ready to go. What's Mueller been doing? Well, Mueller has been looking for evidence of Trump colluding with Russia. So if Mueller's ready to go, Mueller must have found the evidence. This is what they want everybody to think. But the fact of the matter is, it's probably the exact opposite. Let me find the soundbite here that puts this in perspective. Hang on while I look at this. It won't take long here, folks. As I say, I'm having to compress everything. Here it is, number 10, audio soundbite number 10. And this is Deep State ranking member Phil Mudd. He is a former intelligence official, now works as a commentator on CNN. Last night, Wolf Blitzer's show, The Situation Room. He's a counterterrorism center specialist, what he is. And Blitzer said, do you think that Mueller is preparing new indictments?
The really interesting part of this is a potential report, a draft report, a narrative, if you will, from Mueller going over to Rosenstein. Let me play this out in Washington. Rosenstein gets a narrative that says not only this is what we found that might violate the law, this is my picture of what happened during the investigation. There is going to be some dirt in there. So in addition to the indictments, I really want to see what's in that narrative report.
Okay, so this is where this is going. The Mueller report is going to be full of supposedly horrible stuff Trump has done, none of which is probably going to be indictable, none of which is going to be impeachable. Although if the Democrats win the House, they're going to make moves in that direction anyway. But he says here, the important point of the Mueller report will be the dirt. The dirt, not the indictments. Which There's nothing, unless they make it up. There never has been any Trump collusion, and there never has been any evidence, so unless they make it up. So the smart money is that it's going to be filled with things that are accusatory, that blame Trump's incompetence, ineptitude, essentially blame Trump for being so in over his head that it looked like the Russians had worked with him to steal the election, despite the fact that there isn't any hard evidence. It's hard to refute the idea. They're going to make it look like Trump is in over his head, doesn't know what he's doing, threatens the country with his presidency because of his incompetence. That's what it's going to be. But let's take a look at an alternative view from Sidney Powell, whose work we have referenced many times on this program. She has written a book chronicling the deception and the abuse of power, the corruption in the Department of Justice, traced all the way back to the Enron task force. Many of the same lawyers here were working with Mueller. And her headline, she published this yesterday at the Daily Caller: Mueller's jig is up, but that's not enough. Meaning Trump still owes the country something here, despite the fact Mueller hasn't found anything. The Mueller witch hunt is effectively over, writes Ms. Powell, not because Mueller had not planned to drag this out until he could concoct a crime against Trump or a member of his family, but rather because the jig is up. Have you noticed how long it's been since anybody even suggested that the president sit down with the special counsel for an interview? Mueller's reason for existing was the outrageous, purposefully propagandized prevarication that the Trump campaign and even Trump himself colluded with Russia to rig the 2016 presidential election against Hillary Clinton. The Democrats who perpetrated this fraud are not only masters of projection and deception, they took their playbook of personal destruction to a whole new level. Talked about this whole thing with Hannity in the interview, the genuine outrageousness that this is, the literal criminal acts committed by Hillary Clinton and all of the people on her team, the Obama DOJ, the FBI, and none of that ever investigated. And the purpose of Mueller's investigation is to actually provide a cover for the real criminality that was going on. Ms. Powell writes that there is more evidence by the day that the Clinton cabal in and outside of government weaponized our most venerable law enforcement institutions and agencies, lied to our courts to destroy the political opposition. Enough evidence forcibly extracted from various sources to establish the actual crimes, conspiracy, fraud, obstruction of justice, Espionage Act violations, were committed by Clinton and her campaign with the calculated help of within the FBI, CIA, NSA, Obama White House, Department of Justice, the deep state, and the silent coup. There is no doubt it was being run, and there's no doubt that it failed. But they're not through with it, even though Mueller doesn't have anything. They're not through. They'll never be finished trying to get rid of Trump. Heaven knows that is not what Mueller and his Clinton-loving cabal of prosecutors want. They clearly avoided looking for the real criminal activity. But here's her next line is, President Trump holds all the cards right now. And here's why. The White House has seen enough of the actual documents to know the real conspirators were willing to destroy the Constitution and innocent lives to elect Hillary Clinton, protect Barack Obama, and destroy Donald Trump. As Congressman John Ratcliffe explained to Maria Bartiromo, these documents were classified only for wrongdoers, not national security. Indeed, each time documents have been unredacted, we've seen even more evidence of egregious wrongdoing. Now, for the country to recover from this previously unfathomable cover-up of Clinton's crimes and the criminalization of our entire election process, justice system, every person whose fingerprints appear on any of these crimes must be publicly exposed and held to account. The deliberate and subversive conduct of all involved were not only crimes against Trump, they were crimes against the Constitution, crimes against law enforcement, crimes against federal courts, crimes against every American, and crimes against the rule of law writ large. And that is why she's advocating again here for Trump to declassify every one of these documents for the sake of the American people. And I wholeheartedly agree he hasn't done it ostensibly to protect our allies, because the Brits and their intelligence people fingerprints are all over this. And it is extremely frustrating that the truth of this is right there to be seen, right there to be discovered. And all the president has to do is declassify it. And he can do it anytime he wants. Many people are hoping that that is something that will happen prior to the election. We'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, I'm here. I'm just looking at I'm digesting the audio soundbite roster. And we're back. Rush Limbaugh at 800-282-2882. There is a story here from CNBC. It's another story about the economy here, and I'm frankly stunned. Drive-bys this as accurately as they are. U.S. is seeing relentless rise in household wealth. This is according to Credit Suisse. We had the news yesterday that we have 7 million job openings and 6 million unemployed. In other words, we have 1 million more jobs open than there are people to fill them, which means it's a workers' market. We've had a employees' market. A story yesterday that the economy is going so gangbusters that it may blow to smithereens all the polling on the blue wave. Household wealth in the U.S. is continuing to see an unbroken spell of wealth gains. China has replaced Japan in second place in world wealth, according to Credit Suisse's latest on global wealth. Now, this is happening. People are living it. And I guarantee there's a party out there that's not happy about this. The Democrat Party, all of this great economic news is threatening to them. Why would that be? What about this could possibly make any... Well, the question answers itself, talking about the Democrats. Greetings and welcome back. Rush Limbaugh meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. Okay, let me zero in on the situation involving the death of the so-called Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who's now being referred to as a lovable little teddy bear type guy in the New York Times. There is, and I know I went through this the other day, but I am continuing to see, and this is what makes me suspicious of this story, folks. I read my tech blogs. I read everything. There are still people attempting, via their reporting, to suggest that there is a recording of the murder of Jamal Khashoggi from his Apple Watch. My friends, this is item number one that arouses my suspicion about this. There's been a tech blog out there called Apple Insider. This tech blog has been misappropriated as a source for this in certain Google searches. They have run a piece at Apple Insider denying any relation, any complicity in this story. So whoever is behind this idea that the murder and the conversations that took place prior to it and during it were recorded by Khashoggi's Apple Watch and are now somewhere on iCloud. When you find out that a tech blog that has a famous name has been misappropriated and has been falsely accused of reporting this in order to give it legitimacy in certain Google searches, then I start to have to question a lot of things about this story. Now, very briefly again, here's why the Apple Watch angle of this doesn't work. I know that most of you don't have Apple Watches, so let me just briefly explain to you how they work. There are 3 ways that an Apple Watch can receive and transmit. And the biggest one, the one with the longest range, the one that is most capable, is not even available in Turkey, and that is LTE or cellular signals. 2 years ago, when Apple, well, actually 14 months ago, when Apple introduced the Series 3 watch, they activated LTE cellular service, which for the first time made the watch independent of the phone. You could take it on a workout. You could do anything. You could take it away from the phone and have it operate. It would still get emails and messages and record your workout data and so forth if you could receive a cell signal. You didn't need your phone nearby. So it was the first time that the watch failed to be or ceased to be a slave to the phone. The other 2 ways are Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Those are the 3 ways that data can get to a watch and data can leave a watch. You take LTE out of the mix because it doesn't exist in Turkey. There's no watch, no Apple Watch in the world, and it's an Apple Watch they claim he was wearing. The story is that his fiancée has his phone out in a car in the parking lot at the consulate. There's only one way that watch could communicate with that phone. Well, there's 2 ways. There'd be Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Bluetooth is weak by design. It doesn't have much range, 60 feet max. You get into an embassy, the shielding, the IR, the protections against other nations being able to monitor and overhear and steal signal. There's no way that the Bluetooth component of a watch would be able to permeate the protections that an embassy would have to protect itself from just that. That couldn't happen. So the only other way would be Wi-Fi. But that would only work if the Wi-Fi network password of the embassy or the consulate had been entered and the Wi-Fi connection on the watch. Just because the phone connects to Wi-Fi, when the phone does, the watch automatically connects, but not the Wi-Fi connects to the phone. It's a slave to the phone. Now, if the watch knows a Wi-Fi network because the phone it's paired to uses it, then, like if you're at home, your phone is inside, you have to go outside to walk the dogs, you'll connect to the Wi-Fi network on your property, even if your phone's out of range, if you've entered the password to the Wi-Fi network on your watch as well as on your phone. I just don't think Khashoggi did that. I think he was probably known to do it. I don't know that they would give him the password. How would he get the password of the Saudi consulate Wi-Fi network? The idea that that watch was recording whatever happened to Khashoggi and then somehow transmitted it up to iCloud is just so outside the realm of possibility as to be next to impossible. And yet somebody is still pushing this. They're still pushing that recording exists and it's somewhere in Wi-Fi, iCloud, and the Turkish officials are doing everything they can to listen to it and make decisions and sharing it with the United States. If there's a recording of this, I'm not denying that. It could have easily been a recording that the Saudis made themselves, but not from Khashoggi's watch. That just, I don't see how in the world, given the technological limitations, that could be. But they continue to push that. Now, the balance of this story is being used to tarnish President Trump. And I'll tell you how successful it is. I'll tell you how successful. I got an email today, first thing this morning, from a good friend of mine whose name you would know, but I can't tell you because he wants anonymity and privacy. But you would know who this person is. A famous world-known athlete. And he is constantly emailing people proof of various acts committed by the left that he thinks people should know about. He's one of us. He said, Rush, I don't feel good about this. I think Trump's on the verge of blowing this whole Khashoggi thing. If he doesn't come down on the right side of this, it could mean everything. And you know what his evidence was? A Thomas Friedman column in the New York Times. Said, Rush, I know that you and Friedman have a hate-hate relationship, but this guy knows more than anybody else about the Middle East, and this is not good for Trump. They've got to do something about it to make... Say, well, this is how seductive this stuff could be. This guy that I'm talking about is as knowledgeable as anybody else on who the left is and how they operate, and here he was sucked in by a Friedman column today. And there was one element of the Friedman column that I think got him. And in this, Friedman, by the way, has a point in this, but it's not, it's distantly connected to the Khashoggi incident. Well, maybe not, depending on how you look at it. The point is, and I mentioned this 3 days ago when explaining to you who Khashoggi is and why he was at odds with the Saudi government. Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, the 32-year-old millennial son of the king, who effectively is running the country, has decided that Saudi Arabia is stuck in the dark ages and needs to modernize, branch out beyond just oil dollars as income. So he's been traveling the world, including the U.S., making potential deals with Silicon Valley and Hollywood to invest in Saudi Arabia. And the reason they should, he says, is because he's modernizing and reforming the country. Look, I'm letting women drive now, so we're not stuck in the dark ages. And we're branching out beyond oil. And I put a bunch of corrupt Saudi leaders in jail for a while and got what they had stolen. I'm cleaning things up here. And Hollywood loved it. They ate it up. Silicon Valley loved it. They ate it up. Mohammed bin Salman is building a brand new city somewhere in Saudi Arabia from scratch that is going to be a technological marvel. It's going to be state of the art, and that's where he wants this investment. Well, part of the reforms that Mohammed bin Salman has instituted, he says, is to also reform the nature of Islam that Saudi Arabia represents and is responsible for. In the hierarchy of Islam, the Saudi royal family defines what Islam is. They are the guarantors and protectors of the holy sites Mecca and Medina. Bin Salman has been telling Hollywood people and Silicon Valley people and Trump, leaders around the world, he has been telling them that we're going to start de-emphasizing Wahhabism. Wahhabism is terrorist Islam. Wahhabism is bin Laden. Wahhabism is what the Saudi royal family has been permitting the last 30 years. They've been promoting it. And the story is that Mohammed bin Salman thinks we can't modernize unless we do something about this. So he supposedly has been making moves to de-emphasize Wahhabi Islam and replace it with something that's more reform, more modern, less terrorist inclined. And it's at this juncture that Khashoggi enters the picture. And this business about Wahhabi Islam, this is what Friedman in his columns today said, the most important thing Saudi Arabia represents today is not oil and not any of this other stuff. It's this, that if Saudi Arabia could succeed in de-emphasizing and essentially undermining Wahhabi Islam and getting a control over it, getting a handle on it, that it'll be better for everybody in the world because most of militant Islam would then fade away, theoretically. Don't think that would happen, but that's what Mohammed bin Salman wants people to think. Along comes Khashoggi, who is tied to the Muslim Brotherhood, and they're not all in on these reforms. They don't like the westernization of anything, particularly Islam or Saudi Arabia. They don't want all this secularism. They want Islam to remain pure and so forth. So if the Saudis would de-emphasize Wahhabi Islam, it would be a big deal if it were real, and if the rest of Islam would go along with it, as they're supposed to do, what the Saudi royal family wants in terms of Islam. I'm simplifying this, folks, but generally that's what happens. So you could, by the same token, you could say that this militant terrorist Islam that we've known for since 9/11 and maybe 10, 15 years prior to that has been sponsored by Saudi Arabia, by the Saudi royal family. It's why so many people have been upset with so many American presidents being buddy-buddy with the king, whoever he happens to be. The Saudis always fund former presidents' libraries. I mean, the Saudis had a good thing going. They had relationships with every president, former president, and so forth. And while they were selling us oil sometimes, cooperative or uncooperative, depending on the time with the price. But during all of that, they were the primary thrust for Wahhabi Islam. Now, here comes MBS, and he wants to just reform the hell out of the country, get rid of Wahhabism, bring in dollar competitors such as Hollywood and Silicon Valley, and basically bring Saudi Arabia into the 21st century instead of the 7th. And there's some people who don't want that to happen. They don't want women driving. They don't want women voting. They don't want Western influence anywhere. Anyway, now the Khashoggi murder is said to have totally arrested anything Mohammed bin Salman wanted to do. That this death has discredited him, destroyed him. Hollywood's pulled out. Silicon Valley pulls out. Nobody wants anything to do with Mohammed bin Salman. Everybody's pulling except the Trump administration. They are not knee-jerk reacting to this yet. And that has the left and Thomas L. Friedman and the drive-by media outraged that Trump will not join the chorus and pull out of anything with sort of stop the arms deal, stop depending on us. These people are, there was none of this concern over what happened to our ambassador and 3 other people in Benghazi. All of this is about embarrassing Trump. It's not even really about Saudi reform. They're just saying that it is. This is just the latest vehicle that they think they can get in and drive toward the destination of ruination of Donald Trump. Now, I'm long here. I have to take a break, but we will be back, so hang on. The thing here about the Saudi reforms, they are joining us in opposition to Iran. They also, Mohammed bin Salman started a war in Yemen. That's not been popular. And that all of this is happening in Turkey, where Recep Tayyip Erdogan is also Muslim Brotherhood. Also, and Turkey is a NATO ally, but this guy, Erdogan, is not one of our big buds. He's militant Islam, wants the caliphate, wants it all. And then Khashoggi himself is Muslim Brotherhood. He's probably more of a jihadist than he is a journalist. There's a lot to this, folks, that is just not readily apparent on the surface, but it's trying to be simplified by the drive-by media to make it look like the Trump administration somehow is complicit in this because they will not join the rest of the world in condemning Saudi Arabia for this. Here's Mike Pompeo this morning outside the White House. Soundbite number 1. He was speaking to reporters about the meeting that they had with Trump to brief him.
I told President Trump this morning that we ought to give them a few more days to complete that so that we, too, have a complete understanding of the facts surrounding that, at which point we can make decisions about how or if the United States should respond to the incident surrounding Mr. Khashoggi. When I traveled and met with President Erdogan, he talked to me about the incident. He told me that they were conducting their own investigation. So we do believe that between these two efforts, a complete picture will emerge for what actually transpired here.
Yeah. So while everybody else has drawn the conclusion, everybody else, the Saudis dismembered him, 15 hitmen showed up. They cut him apart while he was alive. Then they got some mercy, gave him some drugs to knock him out, then put on the headphones, listened to music while they finished the job. And that's what supposedly has happened. Our side yet will not fall in line with that version of the story. And that's the rub, as far as the media is concerned. Why won't Trump just admit it? He's so loyal to dollars and the Saudis for reasons we... It's just more of the same. We just got to wait for this to play out.
Simply fascinating on the EIB network. We now take you behind the scenes at
There are Beto O'Rourke. He's running for the Senate in Texas. There are Beto O'Rourke for Senate signs in California, in Los Angeles, and Claire McCaskill. She may have stepped in it, which would be a big step. She still may have. Hang on. Now, look, bear with me for just a couple of short minutes on this Saudi Arabia situation. I am not trying to defend anything here. I just want people to know what is going on. You have a young prince, a crown prince, who's trying to modernize this country. Supposedly, I think he is legitimate in his desire to want to do it. He's 32. He's a millennial. There's always, we've discussed this, every 4 or 5, 3 or 4 generations, there is a generation that simply refuses to live the way its parents and grandparents did. They rebel against it, or they change it or reform it. We see this throughout human history. We see it in our own country. In fact, we're seeing some signs of it here in our country in terms of the way the millennials are just totally rejecting, not totally, but largely rejecting a bunch of traditions and ways of life that their parents and grandparents and great-great-grandparents engaged in. So it's natural. The key reform, forget branching out beyond oil dollars and trying to suck in Hollywood and Silicon Valley money. The number one reform that he is engaging in that nobody else in the world of Islam wants is the reform of Islam itself and the de-emphasis on Wahhabi Islam. Wahhabi Islam, sponsored for decades by the Saudi royal family, is the branch of Islam that breeds terrorism in the mosques. There are others, but the Saudi royal family in all of Islam is charged with guaranteeing, preserving, protecting, projecting Islam, defining it. That's where Mecca and Medina are, the holy cities. Mohammed bin Salman does not want to be an Arab, a Saudi, that his grandparents, that his great-grandfather were. He wants to modernize his country. He doesn't like the fact that oil is the only source of income, but it was his attempt to, I don't know, the correct terminology here, I don't know if it's de-emphasize, it's not wipe out, but he wanted to replace Wahhabi Islam with a more reform. Now, I know some are conflicted because, like Andy McCarthy, good friend of mine, says that it's Wahhabism or any other Islam that the Quran does encourage and promote the kind of activity that the blind sheikh was engaged in and bin Laden and so forth. So it may be a distinction without a difference. But as far as the rest of the world is concerned and the rest of Islam is concerned, de-emphasizing or reforming Wahhabism, it will be the same as telling Christians that we're going to get rid of Christ and replace him with a transgender. And it's been brought dead to a screeching halt. The reforms this young prince wanted to engage in are done, folks. They're done because of this. This isn't about Trump. The Saudis have now lost Hollywood. Ari Emanuel says, I'm not picking any money after this guy wiped out this teddy bear journalist. Silicon Valley is running for the hills so fast you can't even see their tracks. This dream of a gigantic new city in Saudi Arabia built by Hollywood and Silicon Valley people with all the latest tech advancements and modernization, dead in its tracks. So whatever this young prince wanted to do, people believed him. And with this assassination of a so-called journalist who's actually probably more closely tied to jihad than journalism, Khashoggi, whatever this young prince wanted to do, it's dead. And that's the reform of Wahhabi Islam would have been tremendous if that had happened, if there had been follow-through, but it's all been arrested now. The young prince has been stopped dead in his tracks. Young prince is being blamed for this murder. Young prince supposedly called the 15 hitmen, called them in there, said, wipe this guy out, torture him, nobody criticizes me. Yet there's those who say, well, those are the kind of reforms he was trying to institute, get away from people thinking that the Saudi royal family would not tolerate criticism. That's not who he is what he wants people to believe. But look at what people think of him now. So the Muslim Brotherhood, they don't want any part of Saudi Arabia aligning with the United States against Iran. They don't like the Saudis and the United States allying with Israel. Nobody in the Islamic world likes this. Muslim Brotherhood doesn't want any westernization of any part of the Islamic world, much less Saudi Arabia. Erdogan runs Turkey, Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, this is whoever did, folks, this has been, whatever else it is, this young prince has been stopped dead in his tracks with this. And the twofer, I think, is somehow trying to link Trump to it and blame him, because Trump will not immediately walk away from the Saudis. Trump will not dump on them. Trump will not cancel oil deals, arms deals. And because of that, they're trying to say, well, you know, Trump doesn't care if a guy died. All Trump cares about is arms money and oil and a relationship with other rich guys. And that's what they're trying to say about Trump, because he and Pompeo will not immediately sign on to the still unproven details of the death of Jamal Khashoggi. I just wanted to make sure that this part of the story was given some time, because there's a lot more to this. There's always more to anything that drive-bys try to present as something simple and open and shut, easy to understand. Top Hollywood publicist on Beto O'Rourke. I haven't seen Los Angeles this excited about a liberal politician in years. Did Hollywood relocate to Texas, or is Beto O'Rourke running for the Senate in Texas in Hollywood? Can somebody explain to me what in the world a yard sign or a series of them for Beto O'Rourke are doing? Well, obviously fundraising, but nobody in Hollywood can vote for the guy. Top Hollywood publicist, I haven't seen L.A. this excited about a liberal politician in years. That's not going to sit well with Obama. It's not going to sit well with Hillary. CNN is doing a town hall with Beto. They're doing a countdown, 6 or 5 hours from now, a town hall with Beto O'Rourke. They hate Ted Cruz. They hate Ted Cruz like they hate Trump. So they're all in trying to put Beto O'Rourke. You know the last time this happened? Does anybody remember the name Wendy Davis? You don't remember Wendy Davis. Wendy Davis was the Beto O'Rourke of her day. This is only, 2 election cycles ago? She was this Texas politician, so-called, came out of nowhere, and was this brilliant, pro-choice, anti-conservative, anti-Bush, she was perfection. She was a lying snake, but she was portrayed in the drive-bys as the second female coming that was going to continue to wipe out conservatives, and she was getting droves and droves and droves of Hollywood money, and she was going to wipe out her opponent in the race for Senate. And she got shellacked. She got shellacked in a landslide, a humiliating loss, and she slinked away out there. May have been reborn as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for all I know. And now this is being repeated. Beto O'Rourke. You know, and this guy's saying, my mother has been a lifelong Republican. And da, 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 da. His mother hasn't been a Republican in 25 years. His mother has voted Democrat in the last 15 elections. The guy can't tell the truth about very much at all. Then you go to Missouri, Claire McCaskill. Claire McCaskill got caught, our old buddy James O'Keefe, in the hidden cameras of Project Veritas. And they get into the McCaskill campaign. They get McCaskill campaign people admitting that Claire would take everybody's guns away yesterday if she could. She'd take away their magazines. She'd do everything she could, but that they can't say so because they wouldn't get elected if they did. And then O'Keefe's cameras capture McCaskill saying pretty much the same thing. Yeah, I can't say that. I wouldn't win re-election if I told the truth about, these are not her words, I'm paraphrasing, but she admits that she doesn't tell the truth about her intents on the Second Amendment and on guns because she wouldn't get elected. And she was also overheard saying on secret hidden video that she would gladly give up some votes from the boot heel of Missouri in exchange for winning big in St. Louis. Well, she's so mad about this. Now, by the way, those videos, the O'Keefe videos, the drive-by media in St. Louis was ignoring them. St. Louis television stations were not showing the video. So nobody knew about it, other than those of us here in real American media. But ABC, CBS, NBC, for example, nationwide, and none of the St. Louis TV stations were showing or even talking about the video. So what did Claire do? She called everybody's attention to it. She should have just shut up. She should have said nothing, but no, you know what she did? She went out and she accused her opponent of being involved in this trick, Josh Hawley, the Republican candidate, and then she demanded some kind of investigation, special counsel or something to find out how this guy was engaging in illegal political tactics when he had nothing to do with it. Josh Hawley had nothing to do with what O'Keefe and Project Veritas were doing, but McCaskill has come along and has demanded that there be an investigation or something happen to Hawley because of this. This has forced media outlets in St. Louis to play the video so they understand what it is she's talking about. So she succeeded in getting the video played on St. Louis TV. You remember it was Claire McCaskill. This was, could this be 6 years or 12 years ago? Remember one of the previous Claire McCaskill campaigns, the big issue in that campaign was stem cell research. And she ran an ad recorded by Michael J. Fox, which I, of course, your host, immediately called out for the phony nature that it was. And talent, I think, was down by 3 at the time this happened, where she went on to win, and Michael J. Fox's ad got the credit. He ran the same ad against another Republican in Maryland, Michael Steele, on the same thing, stem cells. Now, where's stem cells today? And the stem cells that were going to cure everything. Remember, stem cells are going to cure blindness, going to cure paralysis. Stem cells are going to cure Parkinson's. What's happened to stem cells? Where are they? Zero. Adult stem cells, zero. No, sorry, other way around. Embryonic stem cells, zero. And that's what the ad was about. It was about justifying abortion in order to get embryonic stem cells. Have we cured anything with stem cells? We haven't. Anyway, so McCaskill won with that. We're now back. She's in another campaign again, this time against Josh Hawley, and she's been exposed as being fraudulent or phony on her attitudes regarding guns and the Second Amendment. Now, Trump Trump's heading to Montana. What is this, the third trip that Trump's taken to Montana in a month? Trump is going out there, don't tell anybody this, but Trump's target here is Jon Tester, the incumbent Democrat Senate from Montana. That race, Trump wants a Republican. Well, we all do, but Trump's working hard all over the country for the Republican Party. Some of these seats that he thinks are indeed winnable. Let me grab this. Yes. Let me grab Christian in Manhattan before we go to the break. Christian, how are you doing? I'm glad you waited, sir.
Rush, thank you so much for taking my call, sir.
Anytime.
It's truly an honor to speak to you, someone with such close ties to God. And I have a prediction in regards to this caravan, as obvious as it may be to students of the IACS. In an effort to affect the midterms, I am convinced that in the next couple of weeks, the drive-by media will start with reports of casualties, specifically women and children, I'm sorry to say. But it will be directly linked to the president and these reports of his order to send the military to the border.
Wait a minute. I need a question. There are going to be fatalities. You mean it's going to die, or will there be killings?
It's a good question. I think that, we all understand the heartstrings of these liberals, and true or not, I believe that there will just be lots of reports about it could be potentially sexual assaults, but it will do some. It will have some sort of impact.
That's what it's. Sexual assaults on the caravan. Trump supporters energized by Trump refusing sexual assault of the women and children on the caravan but by people traceable to Trump. This is what the media will report. Yeah. I can see that.
And if I may, Rush, I would just like to say, Mr. President, if you're listening, and I know you are, of course, we love you, and keep up the great work, sir.
Thank you. Christian, that's Christian in Manhattan. We'll be back.
The truth lives here. Rush on the
Correction. Wendy Davis is running for governor of Texas. Texas, against Greg Abbott. And it was the same kind of hype. Wendy Davis was going to sweep to a landslide when Texas was going to banish conservatives to the ash heap and elect a pro-choice, pro-abortion woman as governor, and that would be the first step in Texas becoming a blue state. Except none of it happened. Greg Abbott won by a sizable majority, and they're pulling the same stunt with Beto O'Kennedy Rourke. Oh yeah, they're trying to say he's a modern incarnation of the Kennedys. That's what that Hollywood I haven't seen as attractive a Democrat in a long time, said some Hollywood person. About this caravan, take a look at the photos. Next chance you get. Video photos. I want you to tell me how many photos you see starving people, panicked people, people at their wits' end, people who have nothing left, people to whom there's no stopping because life itself hangs in the balance. Pictures I've seen, it looks like people on flatbeds and in cars, and some of them are walking, but there's a lot of smiles. This is designed to create chaos. And our previous caller, I think, is right on the money. Do not be surprised when the reports of violence against the people in the caravan start being reported. And they're going to be blamed either on Border Patrol or ICE or on Trump supporters taking their hidden cues from the president's remarks about this. It's just another one of these October surprises, an act of pure desperation. We'll see. Back to the phones here in just a second. I am getting emails. Rush, you haven't talked about your Hannity interview. Yes, I did. I talked about it at the very beginning of the program. And folks, I do not know how it went. There were 30 people, if you can believe this, there were 30 people here I mean, they were all, I'm not the crew, not Hannity, 30 people here, and not a one of them claims they saw it. Not a one of them claims they were able to see it. Now, normally, after one of these interviews, the sycophants on the staff are all over me, telling me how great it was, best ever, you got to get back on TV. I haven't heard one such thing today. Everybody's saying they didn't see it. So it must not have been all that hot, folks, is all I can tell you. Because I mean, the suck-ups aren't even stepping forward. I asked Snerdley. I didn't see it. I wasn't even in the room. What? I had other things to do. You had other things to do? You didn't see it? I asked the broadcast engineers. We couldn't see anything. Their crew, their equipment in the back of our heads, the back of your head's all we could see. What about, you didn't hear it? No, they didn't run any audio in here. What do you mean they didn't run any? That'd be the first time they didn't run audio. So the point is, nobody, 30 witnesses, and nobody saw a thing. I could have punched Hannity in the face, given him a black eye, and nobody here apparently would have known it. Did you do that? No, I did not do that. I had no cause. I'm just giving an example here. So I can't tell you how it went. You know, I never what? In a break after it happened, they bleeped one thing I said. They bleeped, and then they told me, Hannity got very, look, there's something you said here they got to bleep out. He told me what it was. I'm not going to tell you. Why should I tell you? Because it's not going to air anyway. It wasn't profane. It wasn't insulting or anything. You just took it out. It's a different Fox, Rush. Okay, fine. But I'm just saying, folks, you have to watch it yourself. What about you, Rush? I never like myself on TV. It's one of the reasons I don't want to do it. Every time I watch myself on TV, all I say is, damn it, I should have said X, or should have added this, or should have. I never have that reaction after a radio show. Every time I'm on TV, damn, I should have said that. Oh, darn it, why didn't I keep that train of thought going, or what have you? So I want to show you something on the Ditto Cam. I got an email here. This is about yard signs. You know what I've been hearing is that people all over the country are afraid to put yard signs out because they're literally afraid of leftist mobs coming to their homes and not just ripping the signs out, but doing damage to their houses. And so people who are tending to vote Republican are not putting yard signs out. Remember, we had a call here. This may be 3 weeks ago now, from a caller who said, Rush, I'm worried I'm not seeing any yard signs. We saw Trump yard signs everywhere in 2016. I'm not seeing any yard signs at all. I said, well, that can't. I looked into it, and I found out that the left is scaring the hell out of a lot of people. And if that fright also includes scaring them not to go vote, there are a lot of people scared to death of these maniacs, and that's why yard signs are not being put out. Part of me understands it. Another part of me is afraid of yard signs. Are you kidding? From the country that stormed the beaches of Normandy, we're afraid of yard signs? But it's a different era. And these people on the left are crazed, or doing a good job of making themselves look that way. So I have a video taken by a Ted Cruz worker. I'm not going to show you video on the Ditto Cam, so I took a still shot. I want to pop up here just a second. This picture you're going to see is from a video taken by a Cruz worker who was putting up Cruz campaign signs in a Houston neighborhood, Montrose. And there was this guy, demonic-looking guy, following the Cruz supporter around, ripping up every yard sign, ripping it out of the ground, and then ripping it to shreds. And at one point, he stormed the Cruz supporter who was videoing him on his camera and got this demonic, threatening look on his face. starts shouting to the Cruz supporter how much he hates Cruz, despises Cruz. And I've taken a still shot. I put it up there. This is the guy that was running around taking Cruz signs down, ripping them up out of yards. And this still shot, he is storming the Cruz supporter who's holding the camera. He actually got within 2 inches of the camera. I didn't still shot that for you because all you would see is the guy's flaring nostrils. But this guy is out there following Cruz people around, taking the Cruz yard signs out, and then threatening Cruz supporters who videotape him doing this. By the way, this guy is a long-haired, maggot-infested rock and roll type. You can see that. And he's wearing mustard yellow slacks. You don't see that in the still shot here. But this is happening all over the country in various precincts, districts, states, what have you. Back to the phone, Sam in Wilmington, North Carolina. Welcome, sir. I'm glad you waited. It's great to have you here with us.
Oh, huge honor to talk to you, Rush.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, call screener told me to get right to my point, so let me get back to the Khashoggi. And one thing I haven't heard that upsets me is, you remember James Foley or Jim Foley? He was the reporter, American reporter, and had his head cut off by ISIS, and it was streamed all around the internet. And I didn't hear everyone screaming for Obama to do something, but here a foreign reporter gets killed in a foreign country, and now it's all Trump's responsibility to do something. This doesn't make sense.
Yes, that's exactly right. I not remember the name Foley. I'm not denying. I remember the name Danny Pearl, who was beheaded by militant Islamists, I believe, near Afghanistan or Iraq. And that was also on video all over the internet, the complete thing. Every bloody detail of that beheading was available on video. And you're right, that didn't cause nearly the kerfuffle that the death of Jamal Khashoggi has caused. Nor did the 4 Americans dead in Benghazi cause anywhere near this kind of reaction. And I'm telling you, there is something to learn here. There's something about this that the left thinks is extremely valuable in poisoning, getting rid of, otherwise negatively affecting Donald Trump. There's no love lost for Khashoggi. They want you to think that there is, because he was a Washington Post op-ed contributor. I don't even think he was an American citizen. He had a home in America. He lived and worked in it. I don't think he was a full-fledged citizen. No. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that there's a lot of misinformation about this. And it is curious that this slaying should cause this attention to be paid to it when other American deaths, assassinations, or haven't moved the meter at all. And the reason for it is, whatever it is, it's there to be found. This is something the left does. I think this whole thing is, again, not a spontaneous event. This thing the death of Khashoggi has been way too successful for it to have been spontaneous. This was not about Khashoggi himself. This is about things far bigger and greater. And it's whatever the objective here has been, it's been extremely successful. And Trump and Pompeo are not yet signing on to the conventional wisdom that the Saudis did it, and they did it in a brutal way, and they did it in such a brutal way that it warrants us abandoning the Saudis. They want to try to characterize Trump as a blood brother of the Saudis. Trump is so corrupt, so tied to the Saudis, like he was the Russians, that wanton murder will not stand in Trump's ways. That's the attempt here that is being played out. Let's take another brief time out. The obscene profit breaks continue to mount up, and we'll be right back.
He makes it
Fun that a human being should be allowed to have. I have a piece here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers by Thomas B. Edsall. Now, Thomas B. Edsall should be familiar to several of you in this audience. It was November of 2011 that Thomas B. Edsall, he used to work for the Washington Post, published a piece in which he said that the Obama campaign, 2012, was abandoning the white working class as voters. Didn't want them. They were too old-fashioned. They were too white. The white working class is what's to blame for this country being the racist, misogynistic place that it is. The Obama campaign strategically decided to become the party of every minority group that existed and that could be manufactured. And they would combine all these minority groups, and that would become a gigantic Democrat constituency. So big, so large, that it would dwarf anything the Republicans could put up, even if they got all of the white working class. Well, we know how it turned out. Obama continued to preside over Democrats, losing elections all over this country. Well, Mr. Thomas B. Edsall is back. And this piece is in the New York Times, and the headline, "The Democrats' Left Turn is Not an Illusion." Mr. Edsall, we didn't think it was. There's nothing about the stark, raving mad aspects of today's Democrat Party that is an illusion. It is all too real. So I'm trying to wonder, what's the purpose of this piece? The left turn's not an illusion. They want you to know. They want readers to know that left turn is, by golly, by gosh, for real. The subhead, like many overnight sensations, it has been years in the making. Well, we know this too. Like, go back to the 1920s in the Soviet Union if you want to trace the beginnings of this. Over the past 18 years, begins Mr. Thomas B. Edsall, the Democrat electorate has moved steadily to the left as liberals have displaced moderates. Self-identified liberals of all races and ethnicities now command a majority in the Democrat Party, raising the possibility that views once confined mainly to the party elite have spread to the rank and file. Come on. The Democrat Party elite, sad to say, were never these radical leftists. Now, I'm going back pre-Clinton. The Democrat Party moderate elite has been overtaken by the left-wing radicals. And that's why some are scratching their heads. Anyway, from 2001 to 2018, the share of Democrat voters who describe themselves as grown from 30 to 50%. Yeah, well, you know what? Know something else? The percentage of Americans that call themselves liberal is shrinking now into the high mid-30s. 35% tops the American people identify themselves as liberal. He doesn't say that. I'm adding that. The percentage of Democrats who say they are moderate has fallen from 44 to 35%. Percentage of self-identified conservative Democrats has gone from 25 to 13%. But here we go. Now this is a long piece, but this next graph, this is the money graph. You ready? Well-educated whites, especially white women, are pushing the Democrat Party decisively leftward. According to Gallup, the share of white Democrats calling themselves liberal on social issues has grown since 2001 from 39 to 61%. And because of this growth, white liberals are now roughly 40% of all Democrat voters. While a substantial percentage of Democrat minorities identify as liberals, those percentages have not been growing at anywhere near the rate they have for white Democrats. Wait a minute. In 2011, the white working class was told to go to hell. Now, all of a sudden, white women are the majority of the party, and the percentage of the Democrats represented by minorities is not growing? You mean, I guess that's why Trump's approval number amongst Hispanics, Latinos, and African Americans is at a record high for Republican candidates. While a substantial percentage of Democrat minorities identify as liberals, those percentages have not been growing anywhere near the rate that they have been for white Democrats. So blacks and Hispanics have not contributed significantly to the rising percentage of self-identified Democrat liberals. In fact, says Mr. Thomas B. Edsall, white liberals are well to the left of the black electorate on some social issues. Take the issue of discrimination as a factor holding back African American advancement. White liberals are to the left of black Democrats, placing a much stronger emphasis than African Americans. Now wait, because earlier this week we had a story that the Republican Party owns white suburban women, right? We did. So who are these? Who are these white women making up the majority of Democrat liberalism? Who are they? Back in a minute.
Listen, learn, then
A lot to get some past me. Here we have McCaskill. Here we have Phil Bredesen in Tennessee, and we got Beto O'Rourke, and we've got this guy Tester in Montana, and they're all trying to tell us that they're not wild liberal leftists, that they're centrists and all this, except we find out that's not really true. But here comes Thomas B. Edsall saying, don't believe them. This move to the left in the Democrat Party is real and it's solid. So Thomas B. Edsall is giving his own Democrats a bit of a problem. He's calling them out. You got candidates like Claire McCaskill in Missouri, exposed in hidden videos as being far more anti-gun than she would ever admit. Yet Phil Bredesen in Tennessee, similarly exposed as a phony moderate. He's running against Marsha Blackburn. McCaskill running against really good Republican candidate in Missouri, Josh Hawley. Then you have this clown Tester in Montana, the incumbent Democrat. And they're lying through their teeth about who they are. They're lying through their teeth about what their party represents. They're trying to make their party look like they're a bunch of moderates. They're trying to make it look like Democrats today are moderates and mainstreamers and not extremists, and they're not. They are radical leftists who are inspiring mob behavior on part of Democrat voters. And here comes Thomas B. Edsall in the New York Times with a piece claiming that the Democrat move to the left is not an illusion. Thomas B. Edsall's piece undercuts McCaskill, Bredesen, and Tester in Montana. Say, oh, no, we're really all leftists. This is real. It's been going on for a long time, and there's nothing fake about it. It's not an illusion. We are radical leftists. And furthermore, our radical leftism is being led by radical white women. Who are these women? Because the stories are that the Republicans are really making bank with conservative suburban women, not necessarily just conservative, but suburban women, both single and married. Who are these radical leftist women that are slowly becoming the dominant force in the Democrat Party? Well, we know who they are. They are enraged, angry feminists who have been to feminist studies schools, and they literally hate. They hate men. They hate anything to do with the patriarchy, and their numbers in the Democrat Party are growing. And as I go through the stack of stuff here that I was able to amass while still appearing with Hannity today, let me see. Yeah, here we go. This is at thehill.com. Headline: Trump attacks fuel GOP fears about losing suburban women. President Trump's personal attacks on women are fueling Republican fears that the party may lose suburban female voters in November. The president's latest insult aimed at the adult film actress. Why don't we just call the porn star actress Stormy Daniels comes just 3 weeks before the midterm elections and right on the heels of a bruising confirmation battle over Kavanaugh. Republican lawmakers were quick to condemn Trump's offensive remarks in which he called Daniels a horseface. There's no place for that kind of language. He shouldn't have said that, said Speaker Paul Ryan, who's usually measured in his criticism of the president. Republican strategist Liz Mayer said, yeah, it's just another Trump tweet in an ongoing pattern. When you constantly behave in an outrageous fashion, people get immunized and numb to it. And in fact, right on cue, I have a piece in the Wall Street Journal today written, Mr. Snerdley, does the name Lance Morrow ring a bell to you? Lance Morrow used to practically run Time Magazine back in the, he was the premier journalist. He was not an executive, but he practically ran the place. I met him at Mr. Buckley's home. He and Buckley were good buds, but Lance Morrow was he's a typical journalist, which means leans left and so forth. He's got a piece in the Wall Street Journal that is, the headline is, "We've grown accustomed to Trump." You know what his concern is? That Trump's outrageousness no longer fuels anger on the left as it should, because people have just gotten used to it. And that if the anger subsides, it's bad because that's the only thing the Democrats have to get their people to the polls. And here comes Liz Mayer, a Republican strategist, making the same point, but she's not doing it in a positive way. Yeah, you know what? This guy's been a reprobate for so long, it just people have gotten used to it, she says. I don't believe the headline, Trump attacks fuel, well, maybe the headline is true, the Republicans fearful about losing suburban women, but I don't think Trump's comment, stop and think for a minute here. There may be an isolated case of a suburban woman thinking that, I can't support this guy, he just called a porn star a horseface. But this election is really important, and people that are involved in this election know how important it is, and people that have voted for Trump in the past and have voted Republican know how important. I don't think the media has learned its lesson yet. This is not the kind of thing that is going to cause Trump to lose an election. I mean, there's a few votes here. It may have caused other Republican candidates to, lose maybe whole elections, but not Trump. I just think it's all part of the equation in which Trump critics still don't get it. They don't get the bond between Trump and his supporters. They never will understand it because they're not curious to understand it. And so they take these things that they think are just outrageous insults, just so totally impermissible in American politics, and they assume this is it. That's it. Trump's finished. This has to be it. And not even the Access Hollywood video did it. This isn't going to do it. From the Hill.com, Trump threatens military action if Mexico does not stop this immigration onslaught. President Trump today warned that he may take military action to stop immigrants from crossing the southern border into the U.S. if Mexico does not take action to stop the onslaught. This is the caravan that's headed our way. Trump railed against Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, saying that they have almost no control over their population. I'm watching the Democrat Party led because they want open borders and existing weak laws. I'm watching a Democrat Party-led assault on our country by Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Leaders are doing little to stop this large flow of people, including many criminals entering from Mexico to the U.S. These people, I'm talking earlier, I know that the Democrats, somebody has to be paying for this. There is somebody out there, and maybe a lot of them, who really think that somehow this is going to help Democrats get votes. By sending a caravan of 4,000 illegal non-citizen Americans on a caravan all the way up from Guatemala and Honduras through Mexico, right before the midterm elections. As we discussed, somebody's paying for this. That they have to eat, they have to be drinking things, they've got to be using facilities. Somebody has to be buying the gasoline to transport the vehicles, to power the vehicles that are being used here. I guarantee you, these people are not walking every step of this thousands of miles journey. So who thinks that this caravan arriving within a week, say, of the midterm election date helps Democrats by itself? How does this help? This is what got Donald Trump elected. This is what turned out the giant Trump coalition, the invasion at the southern border that neither political party took one step to stop. So what's the calculation here? Well, we had a caller earlier suggesting that the calculation may well be that there has to be something go wrong. You put 4,000 people on a trek. There's got to be somebody get sick. There has to be some fights that break out somewhere. Somebody in this gang of people's got to have a gun. All it's going to take is one little incident of violence, maybe an allegation of sexual abuse, and maybe started by Trump law enforcement personnel. I wouldn't put it past them if that's the game plan. But I'm struggling to see, other than just the general chaos it's creating, and maybe the Democrats think that people want to stop this chaos, and that this chaos is only because of Trump. If Trump weren't there, none of this would be happening. And so let's get rid of the Republicans. The Republicans are the reason we have to put up with chaos every day. If that's the calculation, they are going to blow this like they haven't blown much else in politics. That's not at all what the conclusion average Americans are going to have at this caravan getting closer and closer to the border. Let me head back to the phones. Got time to work some in here to make up for the first hour where we didn't get any in. And this is Andrew in Cleveland. Thank you for waiting, sir. You're up next.
Good afternoon, Rush.
Hey.
As for the Hannity interview, I'm sure being the broadcast professional, you knocked it out of the park. If you would indulge me just a second, I'd like to say I love you to my wife, Kim, who's always told me to call you. I should call you. Well, finally I got through, Rush. My point is, all these illegals coming up from South America, nobody's talking about the fact of the diseases they bring along with them since they're not immunized. And if you've been listening to reports recently, there's a new disease out called, well, not a new disease. There's a disease out that has an outbreak called AFM, and it's a polio-like illness that's disabling and also killing American children. Back in 2014 and 2016, there was an outbreak. Well, let me say this. The CDC, as of now, has not said they're not sure where it came from.
Yeah.
But in 2014 and 2016, we had a similar outbreak.
Yeah.
And I'm having a tough time finding the links on the Internet because it seems to be getting scrubbed. But on January 4th of 2016, on a website called Natural News, the headline read, Enterovirus D68 linked to illegal immigration is behind fatal polio-like illness killing America's children.
Right.
Now, the CDC is not coming out, and people aren't coming out because it leads too much credence to Trump's call for a wall. If somebody was actually telling the truth in the drive-by media, don't you think that this would have some effect on those moms with small children?
Yeah, I do. This is another really good point. The news, it's amazing how these things remain isolated. We are here in the midst of an invasion of people from various backgrounds, from various countries in Central America and South America. And just independently, some days separation apart, there's a story of a shockingly unforeseen increase in polio cases in the United States. And the stories feature medical professionals who are stumped. They can't figure out why this was happening. They can't even make educated guesses as to what might be the origins of this. And then a couple days go by, and there's another story of mass numbers of people from various parts of the country, world, South America, Central America. There's no question these things are related. Well, I say there's no question. Common sense tells you there's a relationship here. But you're absolutely right. There cannot be any official. If you have the CDC or anybody else establishing the fact that the new cases of polio or other diseases that we have previously cured and stamped out, now they're showing up again, if there were ever official linkage to undocumented people arriving in the country, wow, can't have that. Can't have that at all. So the connection isn't made. It's left for people to conclude themselves if they do. But you see, it goes even beyond that. I remember one of the things I mentioned to Hannity today. He was reciting all of the economic improvements, statistically and other things, that have happened during the Trump presidency. And at some point toward the end of it, I stopped him and I said, you're going to realize something, though, that there's an entire political party to whom the news you just mentioned is bad. It makes them mad. They're angry about it. They're trying to suppress this. They're not happy with good economic news. They're not happy that people's lives are improving. They're not happy that there are jobs galore to choose from. They're not happy that wages are going up, that people are getting bonuses. They are not happy that more people are working. They're not happy the economy is growing to the point of absorbing all the new people that want jobs. So why is that? Who in the world could be unhappy by this? Who could be made unhappy by this? The answer is very clear. I don't want to give it all away, but I told him that I think whatever arguments we're having here, they are still all circling and focused on the age-old argument between conservative and liberalism, and that is the role of government in people's lives. And the answer to why people on the left are unhappy at great economic news is because they can't claim credit for it. And it threatens their whole existence, wherein people are not capable of this and need to vote Democrat to basically live. They need to vote Democrat, need to continue to vote Democrat, because only the government can provide for people. Only the government can protect people against injustice, discrimination. And so as Looney Tunes as the Democrat Party is getting, and as they have incorporated more and more psychological disorders that people have, and now are turning those disorders into political causes that then demand the government fix, we have an impossible situation. The government cannot fix psychological disorders. The government's not responsible for fixing all of these problems that these people have that have made them victims. By becoming victims, they are absolved of any responsibility. And they are demanding that government care, that government fix it. Well, the more independent success people have, the more people rely on themselves, get jobs, improve their lives. Just the fact the Democrat Party gets mad at that is all anybody ought to need to know. By the same token, new instances of polio and the Democrat Party's not upset about it. New instances of diseases breaking out we've already cured, and they're not concerned about it because it is harmful if anybody makes the connection. How anybody can say the Democrat Party wants the best for this country and for Americans is beyond me, because they
Rush
don't.
is always at work.
I got an email, Mr. Snerdley. I got an email from a woman who claims to know who these leftist women that are turning the Democrat Party in the direction. He claims to know who they are. I have it right here in my formerly nicotine statement, right out of the printer. Dear Mr. Limbaugh, you want to know who these leftist women are, white women running the Democrats? Not just white women, Mr. Limbaugh. First and foremost, they are college educated, which doesn't mean they're smart. It means they are susceptible and have been indoctrinated and are trained to be indoctrinated. They are unattractive by design, which means boys are not interested in them. They are in university and state and federal government jobs. They live alone with other women or big guard dogs. They drive Priuses. They study Instagram incessantly, and they're very susceptible to any ginned up fake emotions like the Me Too movement. They have groups of friends, Mr. Limbaugh, that all think the way they do. They justify and encourage each other in their craziness. They are filled with weird notions of feminism. Not the notions I grew up with, Mr. Limbaugh, in the 70s. Not the Camille Paglia feminism, the kind she talks about. These women are into really, really weird stuff like feminist theology. Not only do they hate men, they are terrified of them. That, in a nutshell, Mr. Limbaugh, is the voter who is driving the entire Democrat Party off the cliff. That from a woman in the audience who sent me an email. So, take a brief time out and continue. We have much more, as we always do. A way of life. There's a headline, New York Post. Saudi citizen, well, it doesn't say, it says Saudi. Saudi who arrived in Turkey the day of Khashoggi's disappearance dies in traffic accident. One of the 15 Saudis who arrived in Turkey the same day Jamal Khashoggi disappeared has died in a suspicious traffic accident in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Has there ever been a better name for a city? Istanbul. I mean, that city was made for James Bond movies. Mashal Saad al-Bastani, 31 lieutenant, Saudi Royal Air Forces, was among the 15-member hit team that landed in Istanbul in 2 private jets from Riyadh on October 2nd and headed to the consulate. He died in a car crash in Riyadh, but few details have emerged, and newspapers reported, adding that his role in the murder was not clear. They learned how to do what? Arkancide. Oh, you're talking about people who mysteriously died in Arkansas. Yeah. Arkancide. I'd not heard that term. Trump has asked for audio, video evidence from the Khashoggi investigation. If somebody tells him that it's from an Apple Watch, they're still pushing it. Now, I know you people think that I'm just talking about this because I like tech stuff. I'm not. I'm literally trying to inform everybody. It's simply the odds that this man's Apple Watch was able to record anything and then have it transferred to the cloud is next to impossible. And the fact that this is still being pushed raises a red flag to me about this whole thing. Anyway, I get back some phones here. Detroit and Mike, you're next, and I'm really glad you waited. Hi.
Rush, what an honor to speak to you. I have been listening to you for 27 years from the hot 110-degree sun when I was in the Marine Corps.
That would be over in Iraq?
I was over in Kuwait.
Kuwait, same difference.
Desert Storm, yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I am going back to the Mueller probe. I have a different theory on what is going on and why they're waiting. I don't think they're waiting on accident at all. I think if the Democrats somehow take the House back, Mueller will have a scathing report. If the Republicans hold it, Mueller's report will be much of nothing.
That's really suspicious of you. I mean, what must you think of the institutions of your government that there's this big, long report that's just waiting to be written based on the outcome of the election?
Well, I think they're already written, and I think he's waiting to see which one he's going to release.
Oh, you think they're both written? It just determines the election outcome, determines which one he turns in.
Absolutely. Mueller is the swamp.
Oh,
he is absolutely everything. He's there to protect the Clintons. That's the only reason.
Not just the Clintons. He's there to protect everybody. He's there to
everybody.
Yeah.
Well, Rush, it's been such an honor to listen to you for 27 years.
Wait a minute. I need to ask you a question. Given that, if you think that Mueller's report the substance of it will be determined by the election outcome, why wouldn't Mueller just write that Trump did it? Why wouldn't he just say that they found reasonable suggestions that there was inappropriate contact between Russia and the Trump campaign? Whether they can prove it or not, why not just do that? I mean, if they're this dishonest, which we know they are, if they the idea that
they are dishonest.
Yeah, the idea that we're going to get an honest, substantive report from this bunch, which is ignoring the real criminal activity, which is Hillary Clinton and that whole apparatus that created that dossier and then tried to convert it into legitimate intelligence to get FISA warrants to spy on Trump. We're expecting honesty out of this bunch?
No, we don't expect honesty. And the reason he's waiting is he needs the Democratic Party to back up his reports.
Mueller does. Mueller needs a Democrat to back up his reports. Meaning,
yes.
if they win the majority in the House, then they can back up the reports.
Exactly.
Well, what if they don't win the Senate? What if the Republicans hold the Senate and even gain ground there?
Well, he just can't release anything either way because there is no evidence. And if the Democrats somehow win the House, he's going to have a report that's going to be scathing to the president. If they don't, we won't hear much out of Mueller at all.
I understand your thinking on this, but I think the report's going to be scathing regardless. And I think it's going to be scathing in terms of the judgmental innuendo. I don't believe there will be any evidence of collusion because we know that it didn't happen. We know that liberal writers, one writer spent 2 years the past 2 years researching a book. He wanted to be first out of the box with a book before the Mueller report detailing the collusion. He hasn't found a shred of evidence in 2 years. The report is going to castigate Trump's personality. It's going to castigate his staffing decisions. It is going to talk about how Trump's infantile immaturity and lack of intelligence and experience has exposed the United States to the very kind of collusion Mueller was investigating but didn't find. But even though he didn't find any, Trump has made it much more likely and much more easy for anybody to. That's the kind of stuff that's going to be in it, regardless who wins. Regardless, Republicans or Democrats hold the House. This report is going. When's the last time you ever heard of a special counsel for anything at the end of the investigation writing a long report saying, nothing to see here, folks. We've looked at everything for 2 years and we haven't found diddly squat. There has yet to be such a report written. He's going to have to justify what he did. He's going to have to feed the beast. When this is all over, Mueller wants to be the continued star of the establishment. He has got to excoriate Trump. And he can do it even without alleging actual criminal acts. I just saw a Chiron graphic up there on CNN, and it was about Vice President Bite Me. And he's out there saying that he doesn't want Trump impeached too soon. We need to take our time impeaching Trump, Biden said. This is all predicated, of course, on the fact that the Democrats are going to win the House. And I guess the Senate, because if the Republicans hold the Senate, there's never going to be any impeachment or conviction of Trump being impeached. So Biden's thinking they're going to win it all, and we got to hold on. We don't want to impeach him too soon. It's kind of like in a football game, and you're driving to either tie the score or go ahead by 2 or 3 points. You don't want to score too soon. You don't want to give the other team too much time to come back and kick a field goal that can beat you. I guess that's what Bite Me is suggesting here. Jim in Holmesdale, Pennsylvania, welcome. I'm glad you called, sir. Hi.
Hi. Greetings.
Hi.
I heard the administration is saying perhaps this stuff in Istanbul were some rogue killers. I listened briefly to that other network this morning, and they were poo-pooing that, saying, no, an effective leader knows everything that goes on in his government. And all I thought about were how many times we heard, oh, I didn't know about it till I read it in the paper when you did.
Oh, you mean Obama? He didn't know about Benghazi. He didn't know about Hillary's private email server.
No, or Lois Lerner.
Or Lois Lerner until he read about it in the news.
Yes.
And yet we're being told that Mohammed bin Salman, there's not a thing that happens in Saudi Arabia that the crown prince is unaware of. Yeah, that's a good point. It is a good point. I'm glad you called. I really am. We'll be back and continue after this. You want to imagine a supercomputer at work? Imagine this. Imagine what it takes for LifeLock to constantly scan billions, not millions, but billions of online transactions every day. They do that for one reason, and that's to look for evidence that a LifeLock member's online identity has been stolen. Now, remember that a LifeLock membership is not reserved for just a precious few people. Everybody can access the power of LifeLock's computer programs, including you and me. More Americans than ever before are relying on LifeLock to monitor their web activity for evidence that their online identity may be in the wrong hands. But don't misunderstand me. Nobody's spying on you. When LifeLock scans their clients, it's not by name. It's not being done by humans. They have a gigantic supercomputer that is able to track the online behavior, say credit card behavior of their members. And everybody establishes a pattern, how much per month they spend. in general, where they spend it. And what LifeLock is looking for is any exceptions or outrageous exceptions to the established pattern. And when they find one, they don't wait. They immediately notify the member and ask them, hey, we're seeing that you're doing X and X here. Would you not normally use this amount of money or do this, open this account? Is it you? And if you reply that it's you and everything's fine, they go away and nothing else happens. If you reply that it's not you, then they've caught somebody trying to steal your online identity. That's when it gets interesting. That's when they start trying to, at that moment, they start tracking down where this is happening, who might be doing it, in hopes of catching them. Now, nobody can do that regularly. I mean, there's nobody that can prevent all identity theft, and nobody can monitor every transaction. So they have a restoration team, people in this country, Americans, that do nothing but work with LifeLock members who end up being defrauded, and they stick with you until everything is resolved. It's that simple. It's that necessary. This kind of crime is something that you're not aware of the moment it happens to you. Your data is stolen from an online database where you're a member. You may not know for months or weeks that you've been defrauded. LifeLock will. LifeLock.com or call them 800-440-4833. Use my name, 10% off, and a $25 Amazon gift card when you use my name. 800-440-4833. Jim in Pacific Palisades, California. It's a gorgeous place. How are you doing, Jim?
Great, Rush. How are you doing?
Fine, sir. Thank you.
God bless you for what you do. I've been listening to you for 25 plus years. I just want to make a quick point about that whole caravan. I think it's a godsend for Trump because I believe that Americans like me, the ones that elected him, we respect two things about this country, fairness and strength. And, the Kavanaugh hearing was going down before Kavanaugh showed strength. And every time Trump shows strength, he gains momentum. And if we send the military down there as a message, and if the military treats everyone with respect, sort of almost like an enhanced FEMA, then I think this is going to be a net positive for him. And if the Democrats try to,
What do you think the Democrats' objective with this is?
With the caravan?
Yeah, what do you think they're trying to accomplish with this? Because somebody's behind it. Somebody's paying for it. It's a liberal Democrat donor somewhere or a series of them that are making this happen.
I think honestly, Rush, that the Democrats' plan is anarchy because they don't have a plan. I think they are just the proverbial party that throws everything against the wall to see what will stick. Because do you remember the science fiction film Forbidden Planet?
Mm-hmm. Yes, vaguely. I think
there was like a monster that was made of energy that was conjured up by this man. I think it was Walter Pidgeon's brain. And every time they attacked it, it grew in strength. It absorbed all that energy. And that's basically what Trump is. He absorbs all the energy. It just makes him stronger. It makes the people that support him dig in their heels even further down, and it makes the president more comfortable and confident because he's used to being attacked, and it doesn't faze him, And I just think that the Democrats right now are in a point where they're just in a fever, and they can't figure out how to get this guy, and they're going to throw anything and everything.
I do think that they are seriously, folks. I'm not saying this to be funny or outrageous to call attention to myself. I really think that in a large swath of, call it the Democrats or the American left, I think there is a creeping insanity that has been building. It existed. It's been building since Trump won the election. It has been building with every failure that they thought was a lock to get rid of him. The futility, the fact that they're not even slowing him down or harming him is driving them crazy because their experience is if they target somebody for destruction, that person generally is destroyed. And they can't even dent Trump. They were not stable to begin with. And I think their psychological disorders have now been amplified into so-called legitimate political issues. And I think we're all in danger of these people. Okay, final reminder, my interview with Sean Hannity tonight, 9 o'clock on the Fox News Channel. Still no feedback here, folks, from the staff. Nobody's seen it. There are a lot of quotes from the interview being tweeted out there by Fox and others. But anyway, that's that, and we will be back tomorrow. Open Line Friday. See you then.